Welcome. Today we'll discuss something about introducing and managing change in our organizations. This has been a hot topic because so many of us approached change in a, in a way that it just comes abruptly, and we don't plan for the change process, and we end up doing things, we mess up everything, we do things not in a way we expected, and so we don't end up with the good results that we desired at the very beginning. Sometimes change is not bad. Change is, in most cases, it is actually the route towards improvement. So if you are not changing, chances are very high that you are going to be static, remain doing what you are doing so many years ago, and yet the world is changing. There's a saying that change is the only constant in life, that things will keep on changing. So if you don't change, it's you who will remain behind. With time, you will be obsolete. What you are doing will no longer be, possibly people will not want the same thing that they were getting 10 years ago today, or 2 days ago today. So what we are simply saying is that change is something that is here with us. It's a constant. We every day we keep on evolving, and so we have to deliberately think and uh, basically make our organizations fit for any change that uh, might be required of our organizations at any given point in time. So I will take you through this. How do you introduce and how do you manage that change process? It's a whole big topic, but we'll just capture what is very important and look at one or two models that can help us understand this change process, how to go about the change process. And of course, we are always available if you want further information on this. So let's start. And we are starting with this very important quote, that to improve is to change. To improve is to change. So anytime we think of improving, that is a change. And maybe just to mention that change can be a transition. Change can be a transition. A change can be transformation. It's about new ways of doing things. It's about adopting new processes. It's about just coming up with a new way, not doing things the same old way you are doing. So it might be just a small change, or it might be a change which has a very strong impact in the organization. It depends. But what we need to know at this particular point is that a change refers to a new way of doing things, a deviation from the normal way of doing things. So it might be just a small change, or might be talking about big changes with huge impacts. So to improve is to change. That is very, very important. It's a very strong statement that if we want to improve, then we have to embrace change. It is change that will help us improve. It is change that will help us move to another level. So if you don't want to change, you will stick. You will continue doing things the same way you were doing before. But remember, the world is changing. So many things are changing. So the only good thing you can do to yourself is to be well conversant with what is happening in the environment and taking advantage of the same at the opportune time. That will basically involve changes. To be perfect is to change often. To be perfect is to change often. That is a very strong sentence that you need to possibly take your time and digest it. That to be perfect is to change often. So the more you embrace change, the higher the chances that you're going to improve on yourself and get a better you, especially when you talk about results and achievement of your expectations or dreams. Now, this is we can see there's a diagram here. This diagram is a diagram here. This is simply this a diagram that shows the transformation. No, these are the various types of change. You can see this is development. There's a kid here. You can see growing from that infancy stage all the way to you can say a mature girl. You can see she's moving through stages. That is change. Here we have this something egg, larva, pupa, and adult. This is the life cycle of a butterfly. At some point, a butterfly is a caterpillar, and then it transforms itself into something completely different. That is a change. So a change can be a transformation where you completely change the status quo, never to go back again to the previous status you were. It can be development, incremental in nature, where you progressively change towards the better. And a change can also be, simply put, a transition from the old ways of doing things, to the new ways of doing things. So long as there's that transition, that this is how I used to do, but now we want to start doing it this way, then you say that is a change, or we'll be talking about change. And the question that we want to discuss today is, how do we introduce this change and manage it successfully to the very end? It's not very easy. People are generally resistant to change. And there are a few facts here that we need to know about change. Like the first one, what have we said? I think we have already discussed about this. We've said that change is a constant. A constant means that you cannot wish it away. It will always be there. Change will always be there. We will die, others will come, and the world keeps on evolving and changing. Yeah, it's always happening. So if you are not changing, it's you who is not changing. But at your own personal level, I can assure you that you are also changing. You've seen a picture here of an infant, changing with time. So as every day goes by, you also change. So it's only fair that you also look around and see what requires doing differently, so that you can conform to the new ways of doing things. So change is a constant. It's always happening. If you are not doing, it's you, but change is always happening. Look around, you will see change happening. If you don't change, change will change you. Yes. If you don't change, change will change you. You might be a successful businessman today, but if you don't go with time, tomorrow you might not be that same successful man that you were. That means that change will have changed you. We've seen so many big companies going under, so many valuable products that were considered the best choices simply turning into nothing, being obsolete. So yes, it is true that if you don't change, change will change you. The best thing you can do to yourself is to be well conversant with what is happening in the environment and take advantage of that at the opportune time. Change can bring great things. If you continue doing things the same way you are doing, chances are very high that you are not going to enjoy these great things. Change could be scary. This is the key problem when you talk about change. And this is basically the subject of this discussion, that not every person will be receptive to changes that are going to be introduced, especially if you are talking about employees or subordinates or staff who are not sharing the same vision with you, who are not sharing the same vision with the management, who are not sharing the same vision with the the you know the strategy carriers who don't share the same vision with the owners of the organization. That is where the problem comes in, and we need to be since we have people who might not be welcoming to that particular change that we are talking about. It's very important that we be wary, we be cautious, and we do it the best way possible. So we have to plan for the execution, and planning becomes a very key step when we talk about change management. So we have to plan in advance before we start executing. What I need to point again here is that changes will in most cases consume resources, and the resources that we are talking about here, some of them are very expensive. Time, very expensive, and the costs, raw materials will be involved, human labor will be involved. These are very costly stuff, and sometimes you're going to make massive investments just for the sake of these changes that we are going to introduce. Sometimes it even involves changing the entire infrastructure of the company. So you can imagine, that is what we are talking about. And so this is not something that you can just bump into it. You need to plan, and it needs time, and it needs very good execution to the very end. Remember, change could be scary. This is a very important point here. Change could be scary. Don't just assume that people will agree with you. No, they might agree with you on the surface, but underneath we have mamas, and they are basically opposing to everything that is contained in that change process. So it's very important that you put this factor into consideration and approach the change process strategically, tactfully. Okay. Having said that, how do we plan for change? You can see these are the 5 W's and the 1 H. How do we plan for change? You need to know what we are changing. This is what we used to do. This is what we will start doing. So what involves the activities? What activities are going to change? You need to be very clear on what activities are going to be affected, and they are going to change from what to what. That needs to be very clear. You need to know why you are changing. Why are you changing? What are the reasons behind the changing? Because that change process, sometimes it could be malicious, sometimes it could be for the survival of the organization, sometimes because you want to expand the organization, sometimes for growth and development, sometimes, for stability of the organization, sometimes for the sake of turning around the organization, sometimes liquidating the organization. Changes will come in different ways. It's very important that it is very clear. The reason why you are changing is very clear to everybody, and especially the change, those idea bearers of the change process. It should be very clear that we are undertaking this change process so that we can achieve this and this and this and this, or so that we may not fall prey to these calamities or these threats that are almost facing us. So the reason should be very clear, and here we are talking about objectives. They should be in line with the vision. They should be in line with the goals, so as to avoid, these. Sometimes we are human beings. We go for personal interest. We don't need to create room for that, so that we are changing or introducing new stuff so that they can suit our interests. We have to guard any change that we are introducing into the organization. Must be very clear. This is what we are introducing, and it should be in line with the vision of the organization. It should be in line with that long-term direction of the organization. We say the strategies, the goals, we might always keep on changing, but the vision stays. The vision is the end result, what we anticipate at the very end. So the vision will stay there, but how do we go about it? You can always come up with different plans. So yes, let's know the reason why we are undertaking or we are yet to undertake this change process. Then the other thing is who is going to be involved in this change process. Who are the people who are going to be affected? And it's very important here that you look at all the stakeholders. The stakeholders, we are looking at people who have an interest in the in whatever that change process. You know, anybody who has an interest in is anybody who can be affected, anybody who can be affected by that change process or who can affect the change process. It's very important that we bring all of them into perspective and we understand how they are going to be affected by the change or how they are going to affect the change process. That is very important when we talk about planning. So who are the change agents? Who are these people who will be affected? Who are these parties who will affect us? That is very important when we talk about planning the change process. And don't leave any stakeholder unattended. Whether it's powerful or less powerful or it's just, there's that, I think in one of the discussions we talked about that stakeholder analysis, the Mendelow's matrix, that you have powerful, different types of stakeholders. I wish you can just look around in one of our discussions and you'll find that. So don't ignore any stakeholder. Make sure you bring all of them here, discuss how they will be affected. Otherwise, you leave anyone out, that could be the starting point of problems. When are we going to introduce this change? Time is very important. Time is very important. How are we going to communicate? What time are we going to communicate this message to people, the change message to people? What season are we going to introduce the change process? It's very important. It is possible that if I tell you something in the morning hours, you are going to disagree. But if I tell you the same thing in the afternoon or evening hours, maybe you will agree with me. And that is also possible with this question of where are we going to introduce this change, and where am I going to break this information to deliver this information to you. If I deliver, there are some pieces of information. If I deliver in a workplace kind of atmosphere, in a kind of environment, people are likely not to take it positively. But if I take them out for a retreat, a 1-week retreat, and when they are in, that they are enjoying themselves, and then I break it out, maybe at that point they are going to take it positively. So it matters, and we need to really plan the time that we are going to introduce these whatever change process that we want to introduce. What time are we going to deliver this information to them? Where are we going to deliver this information? Where are we going to deliver this information to them? Who is going to deliver the information to them? It might not be the manager, but just an informal leader. There's a difference between a manager and a leader. Maybe it's just a change agent who is an informal person somewhere there who is a very good team worker. All those are things that need to be planned for good results. Don't just assume that because I'm the manager, I can deliver this information anywhere, anyhow, and they have to do. No. People are very skeptical, they are very scary, they are very cautious of changes that are introduced anywhere because they are not so sure whether they are going to cope up with the changes. They don't know what are the reasons behind the change, if there is something fishy. So people always see any changes with some bit of skepticism. And so it's very important that you approach the whole process well. make sure you plan. How are we going to introduce the change? How are we going to introduce the change? The formal way, the informal way. What is the methodology? When we talk about how, we are talking about the methodology that you are going to use. The methodology that you are going to use to pass that information to them. It's very important how you pass the information to them. That's why sometimes some of these organizations end up going for consultants, so that it looks like the whole thing is coming from an independent person, yet maybe it just came from from the organization. Maybe we don't have the right person who can tell these people and convince them that this is the right way. So they just get an independent person from somewhere to come and deliver the message. So the how matters a lot. How are we going to proceed with executing or implementing or introducing the change process? The methodology that we are going to use. So these are very key questions, and all of them need to be on paper. We say planning has to be on paper. So it's not something that you just think overhead, and then you need to put down these things down on paper and critique them, so that by the time we start actualizing these things, we are very sure we have critiqued and we have looked at the pros and cons and all those drawbacks, anything that can come out as a result of taking one action or the other, and all of them have been clearly thought out. So once you have a very good plan, you might now think of executing that plan. But before we go to the execution of that plan, we want to look at what some of these mind schools of thought have said about the change process. How do you introduce that change process, and how do you go, do you pursue that change process to the very end? And that is very important. That is the execution process. You introduce and then you follow it up to the very end. We want to see a success. Remember, we said that there are so many resources that are going to be engaged in this process. This is one of the scholars called John Cotter, who has done a lot of work on change management, and he came up with the 8-step change model, which is, you can see it here. These are the 8 steps. You can see there's number one step, number 2, number 3 is there, number 4, number 5, number 6, number 7, number 8. Those are 8 steps. Now, step number 1. Okay. So what we are saying is that the first step is to create an agency. How do you create an agency? You need to there are those opinion leaders, people who change agents. You need to sit with them and explain to them. If it's just a small group, explain to them that, hey, if we continue doing things the way we are doing, then things are not good for us. Things are not so rosy for us. We are going to go out of business. Or if we don't change from the way we do stuff, then this and this and this is going to happen. Or we have to change for this to happen. If you want your salaries to go to increase, then possibly these are the steps that you have to take, and explain to them like young kids how the whatever change you are going to pursue will help them to either meet their needs, or to possibly that survivability. And what I'm simply saying is that make it, let it be about them. Let them see the benefit. It should be about them. So create the agency that, hey, we have to do this, and we are doing this because of this and this and this and this. And at the end of the end of everything, they should also be part of the beneficiaries if you adopt the change. So that it's not just about you. If it's just about you, chances are very high that they will not buy into your idea. So make sure they understand the need for the change, and try to make it as urgent as possible, that we don't have time We don't have time. It's either we change or we perish. And this is just about lobbying. It's about talking to them. It's about negotiating with them. It's about, creating that awareness and exchanging. Create that platform so that they can see the need for the change. You don't do this today and introduce the change today. Let it be a burning sensation in them. Let them feel that, hey, we really need to have started doing these things like yesterday. Once you feel that there's that, that calling for the change, then you are ready to move to the next step. Build a coalition. A coalition, here we're talking about a team of like-minded people. Like-minded people. When you share with them this urgency, when you share with them why the change is necessary and why it must be undertaken at that particular point in time, there are those who will agree with you. Make sure you have a good number of people who agree with you. And pick those opinion leaders, pick the cream, and make it a very strong team. People who can, now this will form part of your change agents. So create a very strong team. The more people you have here, the better. So create that coalition of people who support the idea. And there's a lot of lobbying here, so that at the end of the day, we have almost all the opinion leaders, people who can be heard, supporting that idea. And when we have them with you, it becomes very easy to pass the information to all those naysayers. So make sure you capture these people, convince them, build very strong coalition, build a very strong team who are loyal, who will tell you things for what they are, so that we don't want to have a situation where it's the same people who you trust who will go out and give negative information. So build a very strong coalition of supporters, and then create now a vision. How do you create a vision? A vision is a conceptual framework. A conceptual framework. That dream, can you draw that picture of where you will be when you finally execute the change process successfully? That once we do this, this is where we will be. So draw that picture very well. Show them how they are going to benefit. That they are going to drive now those big cars. That they are going to do this. Try to make it as vivid as possible, so that they can see it clearly. Having that picture in the mind is very important in terms of creating the confidence in them, and making the desire as strong as possible. So create that vision. Once the vision is very clear, communicate it. Create the vision. Actually, creating the vision, we are talking about, have that vision very fast, the vision very clear first, and then communicate the vision to them so that they can see it clearly. So these ones can go almost together. Create a vision, then communicate the vision to them. And this vision is not just, vision involves so many things. Vision is that the end game, the dream, come true. And then we have the mission, what we are going to get. Then we have the goals. Then we have the objects. This should be very clear. It's a route that we follow. So it should be very clear. Communicate this to them. And once you have communicated to them, chances are very high that if you had a very good vision and you shared with them very well, considering all these questions that we've just discussed here, chances are very high that they will buy into your idea. And the moment they buy into your idea, start implementing. Empower them. Support them. Facilitate. Give them everything that they need. Increase their capacity so that they can deliver without any hassle. Support should always be there, because people fear failing. So there should be always support. Give them the tools of work. Give them all the equipments that they need. give them, provide them with everything, give them the powers and the support. Please, that is very important. Go train them. That is what we talk of empowering. So empower them to do the job and be there to support them as they do the job or as they implement the change. Then do what? Create the quick wins. That if you succeed to do this by this time, by that if by evening will have been successful, then this is what you stand to get. Those are, you talk of dangling the carrot. Dangle the carrots so that this in itself will be a motivator, so that they can work extra hard to try and go home with that carrot. It's always very important that you create these quick wins, give them certificates, give them financial rewards, give them bonuses, give them, recognize them in front of people. These are very important in terms of motivating them and pushing them to a higher level. Then, as you create and give them the quick wins, build on the change. Build on the change. How do you build on the change? Expose them. If we have others who are already successful in that change process, let them go and learn from them. Training is very important. On-the-job training, off-the-job training. Let them go get new ideas. That is very important. Let them go for those trips and learn one or two things so that they can come and continue with the process of pushing forward the change. The most important thing here is for them to continue learning. Build on the change. What we mean is let them continue learning so that they can always improve on what the new processes, and they can come up with new ideas that will ensure that we have a very successful ending. And this one goes almost with this one together. Why? Because when we build on the change, we are also struggling to do what? To cement or to solidify the change. To cement or solidify the change. So let's make sure that this change is there to stay. So let's continue building, let's continue learning, let's continue training, let's continue embracing this change. Let's see what others are doing with the aim of solidifying and cementing what the gains that we have so far achieved, so that we don't go back to where we've come from. That is very important. And I think you can clearly see we are talking about implementation and sustainability, very important here. This is where the change is now taking place, engaging and enabling the organization. You engage people. Here we are talking about the change process. Here we are talking about sustainability, and here we are talking about introducing the change. So introduce the change, then implement the change, then after that, sustain the change so that we don't go back to where we've come from. That is according to Kotter's 8-step change model. And it's not so far from Lewin's change model. This is a different scholar whose approach was, he said that we unfreeze and then we change the process and then we refreeze. It's the same thing with Kotter. And most of these change models will be basically based on the same, that is the thinking. Like unfreezing, that there's a way we are used to doing things. There's a way we are used to doing things. And the way we do things has solidified. It is part of us. So what do we do? If we don't want to continue doing things the same way we are doing, the first thing we do is to unfreeze. We unfreeze ourselves. We lose that, we had stuck ourselves to the normal way of doing things. So the first thing we do is to free ourselves. It's the same thing when we are talking about a liquid that is as frozen. You can't cook food that is frozen. You have first of all to do what? To let it, unfreeze it so that it becomes a liquid it loses that solid nature to become a liquid. And once it's in its normal form, then you can now proceed with the cooking. That's what we mean by unfreezing. That let's share with these people why what we are doing, or continuing to do what we are doing the same way we are doing, is very dangerous to the organization. What we've just said. And once they have let that out, they will have a vacuum. And it's at that point of when they have agreed to stop doing what they were doing the same way they were doing, that you now introduce the change. There will be a vacuum. That vacuum will now, the question will be, now we have stopped doing it the way we were doing, or you want us to do these things this way so that we can achieve this. Can you now introduce that new way of doing things? It is the new way of doing things that we call the change process. So stop doing it like this because of 1, 2, and 3, and 4, and 5. Then the question will be, how then should we do? Then introduce the change, that this is how you should do. Then once you introduce this change, then the next thing is to cement or solidify the gains that you have. Cement or solidify the gains that you have achieved. Now, it is at this process that we are talking about. This is the introduction of the change. You can see, involve the employees in the change process. This is now the execution. Share with them the knowledge, the leadership, share with them the resources, share with them, improve on their abilities. These are some of the things that we do when we talk about the execution process. And once we have achieved something, then we need to start putting measures in place that will make sure we don't go back again to the position we were before we started effecting the changes. This is Kat Lewin. We also have ADCA model. ADCA model, these are just initials for the, you can see. A is awareness. These are different models that create the awareness so that they know what they are doing might not be sustainable, or that they need to do something that will take them to another level. So create that awareness, share with them. Create the desire, that burning desire, so that they really want to adopt the new status quo after the change, of course. And then share with them the knowledge. This will give them the skills, and the skills will make them strong to face the change. Share with them the skills, and the skills will improve on their ability to perform. And this is where the change process is, knowledge and ability. So here we are introducing change, create the awareness and the desire. Then here we are already implementing the change. How, this is basically the how to go about the change process. So give them the necessary tools, and once you have succeeded, reinforce so that you don't go back to where you were. It's the same thinking. Now, as we do all these things, it's very important that you remember that you are dealing with people. And people also have a way of dealing with, these changes that are introduced to them abruptly. This is a Kubler-Ross model, but I don't want to borrow it in its entirety. But just to put yourself in the shoes of the other person, so that you know what could be happening to him as you go about the change process. Very important that you know that most of these people, because they are scared of changes, they will receive that information with shock, surprise or shock. When you introduce the change, especially if that change is going to affect them, they will receive it with shock. Most people don't want changes. They want to continue. People are comfortable. People are normally relaxed at their. People build that status quo and they want to do things the normal way they are used to. So whenever you introduce change, people are likely to receive it with some shock or some kind of surprise. So it's very important to know what is going on in their mind as you talk of introducing and managing change. Know that they will receive that with shock, especially if they didn't expect or if they think or suspect in any way that is going to affect them negatively. They will receive that with shock. And the next thing will be denial. It happens in themselves. Denial, disbelief, looking for evidence that it is not true. So they'll start asking and approaching their colleagues and asking, is it true? What do you think about this? So many things. They will be talking in their own low tone, and the mood will be, this cannot be happening. So it's very important you know that that is what will happen. And that's why at some point we say build a coalition, so that when they go asking people, have you heard about this? Have you heard about this? You need to have your army on the ground so that they counter that with the benefits of that new change, and they convince them at that particular stage without creating a lot of that room to create resistance. Then, of course, if they don't get the right answers, or if they find most people have moved on, people are comfortable, then frustration will come in. Recognition that things are different. When they recognize that most of my colleagues are on the other side, so they will be frustrated, and they will basically dislike the whole, like, people. They will become angry. You are also on the other side. You are also on the other side. Oh, you are also on the other side. You are supporting them. So this person becomes frustrated. It's very important you know what is going on in their head, so that you can come in at the very opportune time and create, give that shoulder and support him at that level. We said it needs supporting, it needs facilitation, it needs education, it needs a lot of things, so that you can work with this person together. Remember, we are not introducing change to lose some people. We are introducing change for the betterment of the organization. So we should not allow this to happen, but it can happen at a personal level. It's very important that as a change agent, you know that this will happen, and you put measures in place to counter this thing. After frustration, we go to depression, low mood, lacking in energy. And this is where now we have absenteeism, and people just lose interest at work. Some will even will tender their resignation letters. Generally things are not running, and it happens. This person just comes to job, but it completely lacks the morale to do the job. You find his attitude towards colleagues, has changed, because he feels that something is not right somewhere here. And maybe he thinks that he's going to be fired, maybe he thinks that he's not going to cope with the new changes, So these things are eating him right inside. So low mood coming in, low energy coming in. It's very important as a change agent to know that this might be happening in one or two people in that organization that you are leading, or taking the change process through. So from depression, once he realizes that, I'm just a small thing, and most people have moved, and there's nothing maybe I can do, and of course with your support to help him see the other better, to accept the reality that change has already taken place, and he will start seeing these things. So with that, he may want to say, okay, let me just see if I can cope up, and that's where the experiment comes in. Initial engagement with the new situation, because he finds out that he's fighting his only is a lone war. So he might want to say, there's nothing I might change, this thing is beyond me, so let me just see if I can catch up. And again, as a change agent, know that this stage will come, and you need to take the advantage of it very fast. See it coming, take the advantage of it very fast. Because if he goes to experiment level and he fails, then it becomes disastrous. So you need to be there to reach out to his hand, and immediately he shows an interest, please pick him or her up. Then once maybe the experiment goes successful, he will make a decision. Okay, I will move on. I have decided. I accept the change, because he now sees himself as fitting into the new change. So he will adapt, he will embrace it, and then. So here at the decision level, he learns how to work in the new situation, feeling more positive. And of course, he integrates and he starts talking the same language with others who embrace this very change from the very beginning. They integrate, they become one, and they move on with the new idea. It's very important that you understand what will be happening in the mind of the people you are leading through the change process, so that at every given point in time, you are with them and you take advantage of the situation by trying to pull him or her up to your through to your side. Okay, this is just a reminder that whenever we introduce change, and I've captured this in one of the other discussions we have, whenever we talk about change normally happens internally in the organization. Remember, we said everything that is in the organization has full control of the management. These things the management has full control. Please, whenever you want to carry out a change process, ask yourself, what is the effect of these changes? What are the effects of these changes on, number one, structure, number two, the systems that are in place, number three, the style of leadership, number four, the kind of staff I have, number five, the shared values of the organization, number six, the strategies put in place, and number seven, the skill set that I have. Any change that we introduce will have effects on these. And this will dictate whether the organization is going to end up successful or not successful. Please, before you start the execution process, know the effect of changes on all these. For example, if you introduce a change that will not go well with the skill set of the staff that you have, will not go well with the motivation level of the capability of your staff, will not go well with your style of leadership, will not go well with the system. The systems are not going to support that change. The structure of the organization will not support that change. Chances are very high that you are going to fail. So ask yourself, what changes does this change require of me when it comes to structure? How should I work on the structure so that I conform to this change? And do I have the capacity to work on this structure to conform to the changes that I'm introducing? So ask yourself those questions, and chances are very high that you'll end up successful. The changes are likely to be affected by this, and these are also likely to affect the change. Before you change, make sure you do a very good SWOT analysis. And you remember what we said? A SWOT analysis that goes with McKinsey gives you very strong position. You have the structure, you have the systems on one side, the style, you have the shared value, you have the staff like that, and then you have the SWOT. We are concentrating on strength and weakness. So strength and weakness. What are your strengths when it comes to the structure? What are your weaknesses when it comes to the structure? What are your strengths when it comes to the system? Your weaknesses, system-wise. Your strengths, style of leadership. Your weaknesses, style of leadership. Do they support? Can they hold the changes that you want to introduce? Can they hold? Can they sustain the changes? Or if they can't sustain the changes, it should be very clear, so that you don't introduce something that will not see the light of the day. And with that, Thank you. I hope you have learned something. This was just a synopsis, just a, you know, just giving you just something small to test. But of course, we can do uh, this whole discussion can take even a week, especially when we talk about practical change process. We take it deep, 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 deep. So, welcome again and continue following our productions. Our website, www.globalconsultants.com. You can reach us anytime for training and for consultancy work. Thank you and welcome.